Welcome back. I'm here to do my third reaction for Clair Expedition 33, and I really have no context for this piece, Alicia, and I'm really looking forward to seeing what it is, because I don't know the context at all, and I kind of like going in blind, so let's check it out. Beautiful. Such a warm and comforting chord progression. It just feels so right. Very classic song. But what a great just recording quality on these instruments. Really just perfectly recorded piano, exactly the way that I love it. Sounds fantastic, sounds poignant, and you can hear the individual bits of the violin vibrating. You can hear the bow. Just such a soft little tremolo on that string, and I love the little intake of breath by the singer. Yeah, right there. I love it because, especially for me, not knowing whether this is a song or an instrumental track only, with no idea about that, it's kind of fun to have the breath as like a tease. I was almost going to pause it there and say that's really cool to use like just an intake of breath as a sound effect on a track, and then I suddenly realized, wait, this might be a song, so I probably should wait and see. Should probably wait and find out if it's actually a vocal piece, and it is. I'm not sure if there's a lot of vocal tracks on this soundtrack. It seems by the names that they sound like songs, but can't really say for sure, because you can't always tell that from a track title. But it's possible that there are more songs on this album to where you might expect it in the game. But on the other hand, it could be that when you hear it in the game, hearing an intake of breath like that is also something that piques your interest, being like, just like I felt right now, like, is this used in an interesting way as a sound effect here, or is it going to be a song? It's possible that could occur for a player, unless you've heard a lot of vocal work already on the album, and then you probably won't be caught off guard by it. But I really like just the little bit of tension it adds, having that intake there before the entrance. Even though when the song comes in, it's a beautiful melody over very comforting progression, and doesn't necessarily play yet with that momentary discomfort. I don't think an intake of breath necessarily has to be uncomfortable, but I do think at the very least, there's a tension to it. You might rate that tension as neutral, but it's just like a leading tone in a scale. Like an intake of breath is something where you're expecting what's going to come next. So it does create tension in that way. In the same way, the sound of the violin coming in is also quite producing tension here, even if the piano, I would say, is not. The piano is quite grounded and somber, but it just wonderful, just quality of these instruments, and I'm already loving the song part of it. I look forward to hearing the rest of it in this. Back to the start. A little bit Hollow Knight-esque before the vocal entrance. And just the extra strings layers. Great little harmonic kind of turn of phrase in the strings here, just adding a little bit of extra color, which I always love. Yeah, that little shape there. Beautiful. Wow, what incredible singing. This is some of the best singing I've heard ever on a game track. Lovely play of silent moments to bringing everything back in, just in between in these melodic phrases. After such a beautiful connected melody and just stunning singer, absolutely stunning. Like, you can find this quality singing for sure if you know where to look for it, but it's rarely heard on a game soundtrack. Like it feels just so flawless. There's something so perfect about it, perfectly beautiful, incredibly just flawless vibrato pacing and tone. It's just gorgeous, gorgeous. And after it drags us up this perfect melodic shape. I'm saying the word perfect a lot, but there's something about even just the emotion, the expression captured by it, to where perfect is not necessarily only a rating of like the quality, but I also mean that there's a feeling, the emotion of perfect is something that I get from this. Again, separate from its meaning about how good or immaculate something is. Well, even immaculate is kind of an emotional word, but these words come to mind as the emotional feeling when you hear these instruments played this way and this kind of singing and this kind of melodic shape. There's something immaculate about it, even beyond just talking about its quality. But then when it comes down from that arc, we get this interplay of the silence, these little gaps in space, which I think are so incredibly tasteful, and a wonderfully simple way to add contrast in the texture of the music to create immediate variety from one section to the next while not actually having to change the instrumentation or really change anything about what's happening. But these dropouts and coming back in do so much heavy lifting to create such a different feeling immediately and create that variety that keeps you engaged, or at least it keeps me engaged. But I have to go back and hear this melody in full again before we move on. It can't jump in there on the apex. That's a no-no. Just straight up. God, I bet the vocalist reactors are absolutely in love with this. I actually can't wait to check some of them out, because what a vocal recording. Just the timing, the tasteful timing of this vibrato is masterful. Just the positioning of the vibrato after that straight tone is, it's a stylistic choice. There's no necessarily right way to do it, but something there feels like that was the absolute right choice in this situation. And for me, quite like more universally, more generally, I do personally respond really well to that kind of timing of the straight tone versus the beginning of the vibrato. And I doubt I'm the only one. I think it's common to like it that way. Just giving credit to the fact that there are different tastes and different singing styles and different ways that are also worthy of appreciation. But to me, this is my favorite way to hear something like that. Just, again, perfectly delivered. Like, I wish I was somebody who knew more about the voice so I could say more about it. I guess there's probably, 50 vocal teacher reactors who you can see do that. Great. So you don't need me to do it. But it makes me wish I could, just because it's so much of what I'm appreciating, and I wish I had more words and technique to describe it with, to say what it is I love so much about it, because it's so stunning. What a note. Just the fade away. still making use of those dropouts, those little spaces of silence. But what an incredible section. I rarely listen to anything that long without stopping it, but it was so beautiful. I really felt it would have been disrespectful to pause anywhere in there. I'm going to try to find where it began. Just some little descending thirds, a lot of space and silence, kind of preparing us for probably we're going to be making a transition into something that feels different. Feels implied when there's that much of a slowdown, that much space, just these little tiny piano thirds going down. I could figure them out real quick on the keyboard, but I don't feel like anybody's too interested in that right now. You all know that we could do that. No need to analyze that, but clearly it does prepare us for this transition when we get quite a rhythmic difference. In fact, I wonder what the rhythmic or the metrical change is. Definitely feels as if this is measures in 2 beats. It definitely feels like it's in 2 before the next downbeat. And I feel like it's rare that, I guess, kind of halftime, which is a term that I feel like is more used in contemporary music, but it has that kind of halftime, like it definitely feels like it's in 2, which is not that common, I feel like, just for it to so boldly be in a 1, 2, and then a downbeat on the next one at that kind of tempo, but it makes it feel very slowed down and very measured. Very strong for like an andante walking kind of feeling. And then if we go back earlier to the initial melody, I wonder what, I don't remember what I felt like this meter was. Yeah, it's definitely in 3. So it goes from triple time to duple. Yeah, it goes from in 3 beats to 2. So it's a huge different feeling just by going between those 2 patterns, but also because a feeling in 2 is pretty rare as well. So that's part of why it feels like such a huge contrast. We're in a sort of dance triple time, very slow dance, but still there's more movement there. And then we kind of go to this slow walking pace all of a sudden. It's like we've stepped out of the salon or the ballroom into the streets, and we're walking slowly home at night. There's such a shift in pacing that kind of conjures that sort of imagery to me. Anyways, I want to back up, hear what's different here as well. Yeah, it's working with harmony a little differently. We're getting different chords, but we're also getting more drama with more lower piano notes. I think more lower strings. I feel like there's more cellos brought in. At the very least, there's either bass notes being doubled further down an octave in the piano, or simply just being shifted down. It's definitely creating that heavier feel, and the chord choices are a little bit more minor key, a little more dramatic. And yeah, we have that more stately, slower pace. And it's just as beautiful as before. Everything is, again, just feels so immaculate, but yet it's quite different. Yeah, I mean, I'm the hugest fan in the world of a nice, deep, rich bass piano note. I love hearing them here, especially when they come to the forefront, like right there at the end of that phrase, at the start of the next bar. But just what stunning melody writing, and supported by the quality of the singing. Just somebody writing a vocal part could not have a better advocate for their melody writing than somebody singing like this. Like, it's just going to elevate whatever you do, although you're really equals in that venture of creating this music. But what wonderful, like, the the singing comes to match the meter, the tempo that we get in this section. It really pairs with it side by side and sort of lockstep, so that helps us feel that metrical shift even more, because the melody is adhering so closely beat by beat to that rhythm, so we feel the shift even more. It's even more noticeable. And we still have this step upwards for typical melody arc that's so effective. And then we do some lovely little dancing around with just beautiful vocal work around that apex. Not a particularly high apex, which fits the mood of this section being a little darker. But just some beautiful working around on that note, just wonderful singing. Really love that descent back down on that melody. The it's just so good. Partly because that kind of intervallic motion downwards, you could call it part of an arpeggio or a chordal shape or something, but regardless, it's doing some leaps downwards. What I really like there is we've had like some sort of small interval leaps upwards in the melody so far, but generally a lot of it feels more stepwise, and suddenly having these a little bit larger leaps downwards quickly to end this kind of arc, it just feels like it's a fresh type of melodic motion that we haven't yet had in this track. So after a minute of listening to it, we get something that actually feels pretty fresh. Just like this section as a whole feels fresh, but even partway into this section, we've still been getting very similar melodic motion in the voice, following this same absolutely stunning just style of melodic writing, and then we get something just a little different. We get a taste of something different with these jumps down. There's almost something more modern feeling about it. Not that you couldn't see that motion in a very classical song as well, but something about the chord motion right there, along with those jumps down, feels like it stands out stylistically suddenly to me, to where I notice it and go, ooh, that was kind of cool. Like I really do notice it. Oh my God, that was so beautiful. I don't know if I've even heard that part before. If I listened to it, I probably did the first time and just was swept up by it. But my God, how gorgeous was that? Yeah, the in the piano and strings, just so soft. Just that, how quiet it gets right before that moment, and then leads up with these upward steps. They repeat the top note together. It's just so tasteful. I want to catch again how strongly it drops off into such a quiet volume. Yeah, the strings go so quiet and crescendo back in for that moment. They step up at the piano. Actually, I think the piano doubles the last note. Oh, not doubles, but repeats the last note in that little step pattern. And I think the strings actually do it once and pull back. I think so. Yeah, they don't actually play that note again. They actually drop off very suddenly. Yeah. Oh, another kind of new, like, vocal motion for this track. A sort of breathy drop down. Yeah, and we get a rolled R there on that word. It just, again, suddenly we get a shift in the feeling of the voice, maybe signaling the emotion kind of changing throughout this piece a little bit. Right. This is where we got to. Lovely, lovely. Piano comes back in. Such an amazing organic sound to the quality of this recording. Like, I mean, maybe I could be made a fool by somebody telling me these are just incredible samples, but I would say I couldn't imagine any sample sounding this good. Like, without immense work or a lot of money, like, just the perfect, like, sounds of these physical instruments. Just so, something so reassuring to hear instrumental work of this quality on a game soundtrack. Like, really, you do hear it in some. There are brilliant ones out there, but this might be the best that I've heard in terms of the tastefulness of the writing, the quality of the melodies and the arrangement, the restraint in orchestration, not necessarily going for too much, but doing the pieces that are there to absolute precision. It just, I think it might be doing that the best that has been done yet on game soundtracks as of this day and age. Just the fluttering in those supportive violins, just going back and forth, almost like simulating a kind of vibrato or tremolo feel, but they're really just fluttering around with these neighboring notes, just quietly, at least in the mix, probably also played quietly live, and just the subtlety. Like, it feels to me like it's a group, like it's 2 or 3 violins, but like maybe I'm not a master of stringed instruments. It could be like a double stop or some kind of very, very quiet double stop. I don't know, but I'm assuming it's 2 or 3 violins played quite softly. I can kind of hear it. And then we have the main one taking over the melody from the singer. Piano drops out for a bit, so we get to appreciate how great these strings sound, how beautiful they are, and then the piano comes back in to support it. I can't help but close my eyes when I listen to most of it because I just want to focus on it. Gorgeous, just piano shape of, like, again, I could like go demonstrate on the piano, but I don't know if that really adds any value to you if I just go and play what you just heard on the piano. Kind of cool maybe, but I don't think I have any like really value to bring you with that. But it's kind of this shape going down like this with kind of a third up here and then one note below and going down kind of in parallel, and producing a great sound here. Let me back up and hear it again. Great counter melody, another violin there. Not necessarily a layer we were hearing before. Comes in really just for that express purpose of that counter melody, but it sounds amazing. Oh, it continues though. Yeah, we get to keep that layer after it does that secondary melody. Wonderful. So we get to keep a thicker arrangement. How beautiful is that? Just as tasteful as the singer, honestly. Like, they really have some of the same rules for what people find beautiful, and to me that's just stunning violin playing. Kind of expected to go major there, but it stayed minor. It kept it a little bit darker. Right here, I'm expecting it to be major, but then it's minor. Yeah. Lovely. Oh. Yes. Yes, what a great way to bring this section back in. Yeah, we just get this lovely, I would think this is like the double bass section, like multiple double basses, bowing that note, but I mean, maybe it could be cellos. Again, I'm not super masterful in what sounds they're capable of reaching and in what kind of sonority, depending on how many there are. I'm not sure if cellos could achieve that. maybe, but I think it's double basses, dropping that, laying down that note, so to speak. It does a great job, even if it's kind of out of nowhere. It leads us in with this quietness, with this kind of dropout into that section again, but in a different way than we did before, where we just had those little kind of minor thirds on the piano coming down. This time we get the same notes that were in the piano before, when we had this little pause between sections before the same one began. We get the same thing as in the piano, but in the violins and with this deep note beneath it. So they've taken the same writing and reorchestrated it at this moment. I love that. Cool. Okay, so we're doing it a little bit different. We are changing up. Obviously, we're back in this section that feels like it's in 2 and has a walking pace that, is a bit heavier. The first kind of melodic statement, that first section there feels mostly the same, but as soon as it gets to the second time around, as it leads up again, it does it in combination with piano octaves or just larger chords, stepping up with the voice in parallel, which sounds great and really makes it distinct from how you heard it the first time around. Wow, the accompaniment is just... How could you create a more beautiful texture than the voice with that accompaniment on that descent there? Just incredible. Incredible. Ooh. Oh shit, that sounded amazing. Really one amazing thing after another, but what a sound. Oh, that's so rich. My God. What even is... I'm not sure what I say that is. That could be something done with the basses. Like a sort of muted playing of... like a mix of chords on this harmony across multiple double basses. Maybe they could produce that and letting the strings kind of reverberate a bit, like muting them first and then letting them reverberate, because it definitely has quite a reverberation. I'm even tempted to say this is using the strings inside the piano. There's a number of, famous pieces that do that, and plenty of very many less famous pieces that do that, but very cool way to get like a ghostly, ethereal, deep, kind of resonant vibration, with some pitch to it. Maybe it's the inside of a piano. It's possible. My bet would be it's either the basses or it's the inside of a piano. But whatever it is, and I could be completely wrong as well, which totally expected. I'm probably mostly wrong if you're just having a thought off the top of your head on a first reaction. Easy to be wrong, which is fine. But yeah, it's regardless of what it really is, like just such a standout texture right there. It's like very unsettling for the exact reason that reverberation is literally unsettled. It's taking a while to settle. A lot of times the feeling you can get from certain musical sounds is actually not very far removed from what the physicality of that sound literally is. Like, sometimes like people might say that a certain set of piano arpeggios played, very precisely feels like water droplets. Well, it's actually the actual physical motion of it. It is a lot of individual little hits that come very precisely and are felt in a similar way. So like the physicality of it is actually maybe taking charge in what that feels like to hear, even more than the musical content. There are times where something might feel very straight or smooth or soft. And it's really quite a bit from the quality, the physical quality or attributes of that sound or that moment of music, really more than like any music theory kind of impact that might give you a certain feeling, right? Like the way a certain chord might make you feel, like even at the basic level of like a major chord sounding happier and a minor chord feeling sadder, even at that basic level, that's still music theory really doing the lifting, the math behind it. You might not understand it consciously in your brain, but you can tell it gives you a different feeling. And then there's this other category where sometimes it's really like the actual physicality of what's happening in the music that's doing a lot more of how it creates the feeling than the music theory behind it. Like, for example, something that I always had trouble escaping an unconscious emotional reaction to is extended vocal technique, which can be things like gasping or screaming or drawing breath or like really using a very agitated or strained sound or vocal fry. These techniques are reasonable musical extensions of how to use the voice and might as well be used with free rein by a composer for various effects sonically. But it's something that, because it's got such an obvious like real life association to like stress and anxiety, that some people like myself have trouble like really getting into the objective like shaping of the music, because there's just such an obvious on the surface connotation that can be hard to escape from. So again, similarly, we have in a very small way this moment of these reverberating strings, I presume, that they literally take a while to settle. It literally feels unsettled, and it doesn't need to. You could have a piece where this is a primary component of it musically, and perhaps you would get used to it enough that you would no longer feel there was something waiting to resolve about it or something unstable. But at least heard just in this quick moment, it adds that. There's something a little bit disquieting about it as we resolve, as we come down, as we have that space. We've been taught before by now, by the patterns of this piece of music, that it oftentimes uses these spaces to conclude a section or to lead into another one. So we're kind of expecting a transition, which heightens the sense of friction even more. We're coming down from the melody arc. We're having these spaces of quiet, and we have this kind of uncomfortable vibration. It sounds incredible. All these things are leading us. They're all working together to give us a sense that something's ending and or something's coming, or at least we're shifting. And they all do a very good job of that. Again, it goes a little bit somewhere differently chord-wise than what would be most obvious there, which is also cool. And it helps it continue for a little longer rather than ending right there. But I just can't get enough of this. And then they go back. It really always makes me wonder when I hear it if they're going to do it a second time. But just once, only give us that incredible sound once. And then back to that group of strings playing straight. And I mean, I don't even think they're the same group. It kind of teases that they are, but I would guess that those are not the same group of musicians playing. I don't think the group of what I think are violins there. Let me try it. Or maybe cellos. I guess maybe could be, but I don't know. That's such a deep sound. And there's really no reason necessarily to obsess over like what it is, only for the sake of like, suspecting it matters to some degree as being somebody doing a reaction, that somehow it's like relevant whether I'm correct or not, which it's really not. It's more about the impression the music gives anyways. So really I only explore it to the degree that it's like interesting or brings me curiosity to think what's making it. But oftentimes I don't really have the experience level with certain things to say confidently, so then I get myself in a little bit of a conundrum. But again, pretty irrelevant. What matters most is that I'm really just obsessed with how it sounds, and I just can't stop listening to it. It's just so good. It's so good. Anyways, let's see how this wraps up. Oh, great piano shape. Lovely. And let me see, did they do it again here? Kind of. This definitely seems like it's not the strings inside a piano. It's too close here. Wait, what was that? Is that a little pizzicato pluck or something? It's just very faint, but it's kind of added into the texture there. I think it might just be a little plucked string. It could be the piano. I think there's a little plucking there, though. Either just one note or the rest of an arpeggio is quite quiet. Yeah, I think it's 3 notes in arpeggio, but you can only really hear the last one. And I don't think it's the keyboard. I think it's plucked. I'm going to see if I can just quickly transcribe that last piano shape just for the fun of it, since haven't bothered with anything else so far, since I felt it really wasn't necessary. Again, it's probably just self-indulgent to do so. I don't think finding out what a few notes on the piano are really is going to be too interesting to anybody unless I have a bigger point to make or something cooler to analyze that can only be done by demonstrating. But for this part, I just think it would be beautiful. So I am going to try to see what I can work out from near the end. I might like time lapse this or just edit to where I worked something out, but I'm going to check it out. Okay, so let's, after that little moment, which I liked playing, let's close this out. You know, this track definitely has some intensity to it. It certainly does. Like, I'm just peeking around with low volume. Especially in the section in 2. I think this might put it into the dramatic classical category. I think so, even though these are quite like piano concerto-y, but this does approach like orchestral song kind of dramatism, I think. So I don't know. I think that these tracks, despite having definite, dynamics in them, but their focus is really on being the most beautiful, quiet thing possible, which does happen at moments here. But then at the same time, I don't know if it's dramatic and intense enough of the time for me to want to put it here. It's hard to say. I think I am going to put it here into dramatic classical. Well, classical with quotes on it, but I think that's where I am putting it. That is 3 for 3 for Clair Obscur getting completely different categories, which is impressive. Alicia. Okay, I'm going to put it there, and now time for some closing thoughts. It was incredible, honestly. I don't know if this is a piece that comes in different forms at different parts of the soundtrack, if this is the only way you hear it, if it's a song you get repeated. Many games that have a song in them, it can be a core melody in many different tracks. So let me know if that's the case, if this gets repurposed in different parts of the score. I hope it does, because it's such a beautiful melody. I'm sure it could be used in many different ways in different places. But this was, really 10 out of 10, just stunning. and I thoroughly enjoyed looking at it. And hopefully it was an interesting reaction, and I will hopefully see you for a lot more Clair Obscur as well. So stay tuned and let me know what I should react to next and what you thought of this one. Until next time,